The Untold Adventures of Biao. Season 1. Episode 2. In the quiet night, the space enveloping a mysterious black of darkness, the whole village of Da Bing was falling asleep. There was only the light from Mr. Zhao's house still lighted. The reason was that something tragic just happened to this family. Mr. Zhao just passed away. It was an extremely sudden and mysterious death, left his family in shock and failed to prepare. Big brother, why do you put Dad on the table like that? I feel pity for him. It can't be helped. He passed away suddenly, so I could not prepare anything. I believe Dad will sympathize with us. So what should we do next? How long would it take to organize a funeral? It's usually 3 days. Let's buy the coffin tomorrow first, and then we take turns to watch over Dad. For the rest, let's leave it later. They were 2 Zhao brothers sitting outside the door to watch over their father's body, discussing how to carry out their father's funeral. It can be said that Mr. Zhao was the most exemplary teacher in Dabing village. He was gentle and calm. His whole life was very dedicated, always helping the neighbors. So Mr. Zhao was very popular with the people in the village. He had 2 sons, the elder name was Zhao Ling, and the younger one was Zhao Yu. Being the sons of a Confucian scholar, despite losing their mother at a young age, the 2 brothers were well educated and respectful to their father. I just have had a girlfriend recently and plan to introduce her to Dad. But it is fate. We cannot do such things against it even we want or try to do it. Although Mr. Zhao was old, his health was still fine with no unusual symptoms. The weather was not too harsh either, but suddenly he got a fever for a few days and then passed away. It was so strange that a healthy person like him die that fast. The 2 brothers rambled for a while, then Ling reminded Yu to check the incense for not letting it go off. They still practiced the custom of burning longevity incense beside the dead body. When watching over the body, they must pay attention to the incense. It's said that if the incense went out, it would not be good for the descendants of the Zhao. Yu turned to check if the incense was still burning or not. Then at that moment, his face was frightened and panicked, called his brother. Both of them were terrified as seeing a black shadow pass by. When they looked closely, it turned out that it was a black cat standing on the table out of nowhere. It seemed that this was a cat with one eye blind. But even so, those eyes were still brighter than ever in the dark. While Zhao's brothers froze and had no idea how to handle it, the black cat jumped onto the corpse and made a horrible meow. It stared at the face behind the white cloth which covered Mr. Zhao's body. Then suddenly, that black cat flicked the white cloth with its hand as if on purpose. The cat got close to the dead body and it seemed like it transferred yang air to the corpse. The 2 brothers were furious at that time. They shouted and rushed over to the cat to chase it away. The black cat jumped out of the table and walked slowly toward the window. It didn't seem that the cat was scared or cared about the 2 brothers. Instead, it kept calmly heading to the window, then jumped on it. Then it slowly turned to stare at the Zhao's brothers, let out 2 terrifying meow meow before jumping out of the window. The 2 brothers saw the black cat had run away but could not do anything. It made them so angry. Don't let me see you again or I will beat you to death. Is father okay? Darn it. How the hell did that cat get in here? Father is fine. Where the hell is that cat comes from? Ling went around to check and closed all the windows while Yu took care of his father's corpse. Finally, Yu covered the corpse with a white towel. It's said that before the soul went to the eternity after death, if a black cat jumped over the corpse would rise. It was also called the incarnation of demon. However, Yu had been away from his hometown for many years, so he barely understands what just happened. He saw his brother tensed up just because of a black cat, so teasing him. "It's just a black cat. You don't have to be freaking out. It's so ashamed. You understand what the hell? If a black cat jumps over a corpse such as that, then the corpse will rise." While Yu said to his brother in a joking tone, but it's unexpectedly that his brother could not calm down and yell at him. However, Yu did not believe in what he had just heard from his brother. He said in a very sarcastic voice because he thought the dead were an end. Roughly, the corpse was nothing else but just a pile of meat. It was impossible to rise just because a stupid black cat jumped over it. It was so ridiculous. It's just a dead body. How can it rise just because a stupid black cat jumped over it? You are too innocent to believe in such things, big brother. You should not say so. Karma also comes from your words. Ling took out the lighter and lit a cigarette, took a deep breath, and continued. Although I have never seen it with my own eyes, it said that it happened to Mrs. Tan in the nearby village. A few years ago, she passed away due to an incurable disease. However, a black cat jumped over her dead body before she was buried. Then she rose and lived a few more years. Everyone in this village knew this story. All right, I believe in it, okay? The younger brother yawned while answering to let the topic go. But in his mind, he still thought that it was just a made-up story to scare the innocent. At that time, neither of them noticed that Mr. Zhao's corpse was moving slightly, then sat up behind them. They still did not aware of it and kept chatting while sitting outside. There are things that cannot be explained. But the rumors must have the reasons for it. Spiritual stories were not for joking, and it'd be better to believe it instead. Forget it. You go and take a look if the incense is still burning or not. Yu followed his brother's words, turned around to check the incense. It's when he discovered something's horrible and trembled to call his brother. Ling turned his head to take a look. At this time, Zhao's corpse was also looking at two of them. The two were so scared to their mouths, and they could not utter a single word. On the panicked faces of them, their fear was evident to sweat. At this time, Mr. Zhao had a weird posture. He turned his face towards the two brothers, opened his mouth wide and his eyes blankly staring at his two sons. They just froze and stared at each other like that until Yu asked the corpse if it was his father. It seemed that those words awoke the corpse. It suddenly crawled down the table and headed towards the two brothers. Ling reacted immediately and shouted at his brother to run away. At that time, Mr. Gong and Biao were about to have dinner. Biao was worried because his father was unable to go to see the people anymore. But, contrary to him, Mr. Gong was still calm and relaxed. Mr. Gong was the primary income of the family. He often went to see people's illnesses as a healer. A few months ago, someone from the town visited the village. They checked and found that Mr. Gong did not have a doctor's license, so they stopped him from working as usual. Since then, Mr. Gong did not go to see other people's illnesses anymore. Biao was the only son of Mr. Gong. He had not been taken care of by his mother since he was a child. To compensate for his son, Mr. Gong tried to give him a full life. Because of that, Biao relied on his father for everything. Although his family's economy went down, he did not go to work to help his father. Instead of that, he kept complaining about the poor meals. At this moment, two young men in the village ran over with fearful faces. They must have witnessed something terrible. They gasped for a long time and finally could say some words. "Mr. Zhao. Corpse." The corpse suddenly rose. When he heard the corpse rose, Mr. Gong did not dare to delay. He rushed in preparation to go over to Mr. Zhao's house. He left immediately and left the meal unfinished. Mr. Gong knew that if the corpse was rising, no one should stay near it. He was afraid that the soulless corpse would hurt the others. He told Biao to go there first to see the situation while he prepared the necessary things to deal with it. You go and see the situation first. I have to prepare some things. Remember not to let the corpse go into the village and harm others, especially not allowing the corpse to see blood. I got it. Leave it to me, Dad. Mr. Gong understood that Biao often lost his temper, so he told him over and over to be careful. Biao and two other young men ran to the house of the Zhao family. Upon arriving, Biao found Yu leaning against the house's front gate. His face was blank, and the eyes were looking far away. Biao praised Yu was so brave that not running away even seeing a corpse rising. However, it turned out that it was not as Biao thought. Yu responded with a trembling tone that he was so scared that he could not even stand up and asked Biao to support him. After getting Yu up, Biao cautiously checked the situation inside to find the corpse's location and then taking action. The three of them went inside the house, then rushed into the room that the corpse was. When entering that room, the three of them panicked at the situation. All three stood dumbfounded. It turned out that the corpse was in a weird position. It was crawling on the ground with the face staring straight at the wall and not moving at all. Hearing the sound from outside, it immediately turned to where the three of them were standing. The eyes were rolling up, and the horrified face seemed to be angry. It rushed to Biao immediately. The two young men couldn't keep their calm anymore and immediately ran away. Biao was left alone in the room with the corpse. Biao had never met such a thing like this before and he was so nervous. While he was thinking of a solution, the corpse charged towards him. At that time, Biao had nothing in his hand. Seeing a chair in the room, he quickly took it to block the corpse's attack. After that, Biao was shocked to see deep rutting on the chair's surface. On the other hand, the corpse was unharmed. The corpse rushed toward Biao again. He hurriedly stepped back to dodge. When Biao struggled with the corpse and had no idea how to deal with it, a familiar voice came out from behind. Try to hold on for a bit more. I'm coming. Dad, hurry up. I can't hold it anymore. As soon as he turned back, Biao saw the corpse was running to attack him again. Because his father was here, Biao was more confident and about to fight back the corpse. At that time, he stepped on something. Biao quickly realized it was the white cloth used to cover the corpse. He immediately used the cloth to cover the corpse to restrain its power. While the corpse was struggling, Biao kicked the table toward it, then used the table to push the corpse into the corner and blocked its actions. Dad, hurry up. Dad, give me a hand. I can't hold it anymore. Biao was exhausted, gasping for help from his father. Mr. Gong stood on the other corner of the house and slowly drew a talisman. He said, "It's just a jiangshi. Didn't you say it's just a tiny thing that you can handle by yourself?" Well said then. The corpse's hands seemed to be strengthened at this moment, pierced through the thick hard wooden table. Fortunately, Biao was able to dodge it. Mr. Gong found that the situation was intense at that moment. He immediately approached and put the talisman on the jiangshi's head. As soon as the talisman was stuck, the corpse stood still in place and no longer moved. Biao stroked his sweat and let out a sigh of relief. Both of them saw that the corpse was no longer moving, then taking out the table. The corpse stood still and was shaky. Mr. Gong told Biao to let the corpse lie down. He drew one more talisman and stuck it on the table to seal the corpse. After all, he called Zhao's family members to ask for the details. It's fine now. Why does such a thing happen? At this time, the two Zhao brothers were still in fear. They slowly told the story about the rise of the corpse. We were watching over the corpse of our dad. Out of nowhere, the black cat that my father adopted a few years ago appeared and then jumped over my dad's corpse. Mr. Gong just heard the black cat and understood the reason. It turned out that he also knew that black cat. It was a wild cat that Mr. Zhao had picked up from the side of the road long ago. When he adopted it, Mr. Zhao did not know how old it was or where it came from. When he brought it home, the cat cried every night. Even that, yet Mr. Zhao raised it for more than 10 years. That day, when Mr. Gong saw that cat, he had a suspicion that there was something wrong and advised Mr. Zhao to let it go. Because since the past, if cats lived too long, they would become a devil and bring trouble to the owner anyway. I've told him many times. How can a cat live for more than 6 years? But he did not listen to me. The cat definitely wanted to borrow the corpse of Mr. Zhao. Suddenly a shadow passed by, causing Mr. Gong to look up at the ceiling. At that time, not only Mr. Gong but also Biao discovered what the shadow was. It turned out that on the roof was the black cat that was mentioned. The black cat was aware that it was found, then it looked at them for a while with a sharp look as if it hadn't given up on its intention. After that, the cat turned to leave in the silent night. Mr. Gong figured something terrible would happen if leaving that cat free. He must get rid of that cat as soon as possible not to let it harm people.